And I remember the very first day when I was in the police academy. We're, a bunch of rookie recruits that don't know anything from anything. All we know is this is where we're at. One of the questions that somebody had asked was, where do you see yourself going in your career in law enforcement? And I said, I'm gonna go to investigations. Whether we're truly wearing a jacket or not, we are all, at one time or another, covering ourselves from who we truly are. We spend so much time in our career choices that becomes who we are. So taking off the jacket to me really means, who are you outside of that path? I think that we have a society that has a lot of things that we're struggling with. Kids are our most vulnerable population. And I think that that's an area where we can make the biggest impact. And we can change directions for people. So that's the best time, I think, to be a positive influence is when somebody's young.
This week's episode is proudly brought to you by Save Around. Save Around is one of the nation's leading providers of coupon books with unique editions in over 160 markets across the U.S. Each coupon book contains over $5,000 in value and savings from your favorite local, regional, and national businesses, and also comes with 12 free months of complimentary access to their mobile app. Plus, Save Around books make excellent gifts. As a special thank you for being an American Real subscriber, we're able to offer you 25% off your next Save Around purchase. Just visit savearound.com and enter the promo code AMERICAN at checkout. The offer is valid through the end of the year and cannot be combined with any other offers or discounts. On this week's episode of American Real, we bring you Chris Felice, who came to us through our Live Tribe group and is a detective and an investigator in family services helping abused children. Chris is writing his own book, he is a family man, and he has a true heart and passion for helping people. Since recording this episode, Chris has jumped in full force with American Real. He joined the American Real Academy and is taking our Podcast Your Passion course. Soon, he'll be launching his very own podcast called Shame or Shameless, putting his professional interviewing skills into action. Now, if you have an interest in becoming a broadcaster like Chris, join our 8-week course, Podcast Your Passion, so you too can become a world-class podcaster. I'll have you up on iTunes and YouTube within weeks, interviewing mentors and influencers in your field of interest. The next course will begin right after the new year, so be sure to sign up today as space is limited. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode with Chris Felice. This is American Real. I am Roger Brooks. My guest today is Christopher Felice, a 20-year veteran of the emergency services field with extensive experience as a police officer. You currently act in the capacity of a criminal investigator assigned to a highly skilled unit which focuses on family services and the investigation of crimes against children. With both a formal education and experience in many different areas of service to others, you share what you've learned through instruction and training in the classroom and public arena. You spend lots of time working hand in hand with children and adults during their time of need through a truly victim-centered approach. And Chris, you're a member of our Live Tribe, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. And we, speaking of Live Tribe, that's how we got connected initially. You jumped in, and as we talked a couple of months ago, it was the first time you ever did anything like that. So before we get into your story, tell us about your experience, an introduction to American Real, and then your experience with Live Tribe.
I'll tell you, I had met with Melissa Killeley, and she does Live Tribe, and she's been on your show. She also has her own show. And so the first time I met her, we actually met in a coffee shop. I wasn't supposed to be there. She was meeting with my partner, and I was with my partner that day. So that's how I met Melissa anyhow. And she ended up inviting us to come on her show. So, we set that up, and my partner and I went together, and we did a show with her. And as I was pulling out of the parking lot, I said, I got to turn around and talk to this girl, because I think she's a rock star. She's just one of those people that she's got a lot of insight, and she's got a lot of knowledge. And so I spun around in the parking lot, and I'm talking to her, and it came to a conversation of, what are you thinking you're going to do toward retirement? And so through our conversation, it was about 5 minutes later, I pulled away, and about 15 minutes later, she sent me a message and said, "Hey, I need to talk to you. I have an idea that I think would be beneficial to you." And that was when she introduced me to the idea of Live Tribe and American Real. So, I sat on it for a few days, and decided I'm gonna do Live Tribe, and I ended up on a phone call with Melissa, and I said, I think I'm going to do this. And she said, well, when are you going to start? And so she put me on notice, really. And I said, I'm going to start today. So that's what I did. And it's been an amazing thing for me. I'm in cycle 3 now. I don't know that my videos get any better, but I notice an internal difference and a lot of different things that I attribute to Live Tribe.
Well, that's awesome. And for people that don't really know exactly what Live Tribe is, the premise is to go live for 60 seconds a day within our private Facebook group, within American Real, and you're basically just talking about whatever's on your mind for that moment, right? And as we go through the days and through the cycles, it seems there's some magic in doing these live videos. And I see it in you, and I see it in others. And here we are, a few months later after you've tried it, and now I feel like I already know you because I've been watching you for so long.
Right.
And it's really an amazing thing, and so happy to have you a part of it, and that you're a graduate of the 21-day challenge. You made it through. Most people don't make it through. 50% of the people start and never make the 21 days. And then before that, 80% of the people sign up and never do their first video. So that's why she put you on the spot that day. Because if you don't start, excuses set in, resistance sets in, and we feel intimidated.
Right. So I want to say about that first video, and it's silly, but the struggle to just do it, is real. I've never done live video to broadcast, before. I've always kind of stayed away from it. And the nice thing with Live Tribe is that it provides a platform that allows you to get into it without the whole world watching. So it's kind of an ease-in thing. And but still, that very first time, after I hung up the phone, I said, crap, what did I do? Right? I got to do it now.
Yeah.
And so I stalled myself. I'm pretty sure that it was my first video. I called myself out because I just was putting this thing off, putting it off. And then when I started, after the struggle of pushing that button to get the video started, it's been a really busy day, and I said, actually, that's a complete lie. It's just like I put this off on myself.
Yeah, and it's that internal resistance that we all have. And this is why we're trying to introduce more and more people to this concept, because it's really getting to a place within yourself that most of us never had before. And that's doing this live. It's really like talking into a mirror, if you think about it. There's no different, but we're speaking truths that we may not have done before.
Right.
And it's great to hear that it's helped you, learn to do live video. Now, I'm sure you're more comfortable today than you were 3 months ago or whenever you started, a couple months ago. But more than that, it's hopefully helping you in other ways and areas of your life that you may not have even imagined, because that's what it's done for me.
Yeah. Well, I can say that, I had thought for quite some time of doing a podcast type show, but I wasn't going to do it on camera. And I never did it, but it's that same resistance. It's self-imposed limitations, and you can psych yourself out about anything. But that for like a long time, I was like, I got to do this. And I think that I had talked to you before about that when I met you, or when I talked to you on the phone, that, that's still something that I want to do. And I think that Live Tribe has solidified the fact that that's going to happen. But now I'm not against video, the video piece. It's not scary, right?
Right. So you had a chance to experience it and become comfortable, so maybe that could be in the cards as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about you and your story. I know you're a family guy.
Yeah.
Family is really, really important to you, as you've told me from day one. Mm-hmm. And before we get into a little bit more about your work, talk about why family is so important.
I was raised in a very close-knit family. And, my family growing up was a very affectionate family. My parents, are amazing people. They've been married for, I have to go back, they've been married for 42 years, okay? And that's just been a value that's been instilled in me from the start, really, and to this day. It's never left. I think that it's contributed to where I'm at in my life now, not only with my own family, but with the work that I do. I think that that's probably a big piece of it. So, yeah, that's family is everything, and I think when you start to acknowledge the people that really have never had that opportunity, I guess, to be a part of a really close, loving with a strong foundation family, then you learn to appreciate everything,
Right. No, it puts it all into perspective.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about where you got started in your career, and what propelled you to where you are now. What gave you the insight, the drive to want to go into law enforcement?
I had, growing up, there were some people that were friends of my family that were police officers, and I remember that as a kid. I personally don't remember being that kid that always said, "This is what I'm going to do. I got to do this." I think that I really was more pulled, I guess, maybe not. I was pulled in the direction that that ultimately took me to where I am today. When I graduated out of high school, I didn't really know what direction I wanted to go in. So I did some volunteer work with the fire service. I got a little bit of a taste of that world, and then I went on and worked in EMS for a few years. But I was always looking for an opportunity to do more. And so I was taking tests, and really any civil service test that came up, I would take it. I took tests for career firefighter positions, and I've traveled across down the East Coast to test for different jobs and stuff. But I ended up getting selected by the sheriff's office that I work in, and my career in law enforcement started in 2004. And so, I worked in patrol for 8 years, working, all different shifts, overnights for a long time, and day shifts and evening shifts, and but I always knew that I wanted to end up in investigations. And I remember the very first day when I was in the police academy. All of the administrators, a lot of police chiefs and sheriffs were in the room. It's day one of the police academy. So we're, a bunch of rookie recruits that don't know anything from anything. All we know is this is where we're at. And all these guys standing in the front of the room, guys and ladies. And one of the questions that somebody had asked was, where do you see yourself going in your career in law enforcement? And I said, I want to go to investigations. The law enforcement world, nobody starts out as an investigator. That's, I think, one of the biggest things that a lot of people don't understand is that you don't just start where you want, and you work your way through to get to wherever that ends up being. And so after 8 years anyways, I took a promotional exam, and I got promoted. But a lot of the work in the meantime of that was just I was taking every extra thing that would be offered to me.
Such as?
I did SWAT stuff for a short time. Wasn't really my niche, but
You didn't like break it down doors and...
it's fun, I guess. I mean, in the heat of the moment, it's the whole adrenaline piece is, but that's not what I wanted to do, I guess. And so a lot of the other extra assignments that I took were, I went to school and became a DARE instructor. So I started teaching the DARE program in the schools in my county.
For people that don't know what DARE is?
DARE it's a program that, really the best way that I can explain it, and the way that we do it in the county that I work, is that we offer this program to all 5th grade students in every district within the county. It's an opportunity, really, to get into a classroom with a bunch of kids that may not have a good experience with law enforcement, or they've, have fears, and I think that it's a way to bridge the gap, I think, between law enforcement and the community. That's one thing that we do. Another thing that we do is we teach decision-making skills. So it's a 10-week program where I push into a classroom for 10 weeks, 1 day a week. And I spend an hour a week with each class. And we go through the curriculum that DARE America has, put together and, that we're operating under now, which is, it's all science-based and teaching-based. So I started doing that, and I worked doing that for a couple of years before I got into investigations. I also took assignments doing, I do child safety, child IDs. It's another community outreach program, and where we will do IDs for parents of their children, and all of that data gets stored in a database in Albany. It's not accessible to anybody, only in the event that you have a missing child. So we update IDs all the time. Usually once a year. We tell everybody, once a year, come in. We'll update them. That's a thing that I do and took on. I took on child passenger safety, installation of car seats for people, and inspections, and educating the public on, how to be safe around cars and in cars with your children. I went and continued in my instructor certification. So I'm a police instructor, which allows me to teach state courses through DCJS, through the Division of Criminal Justice Services here in New York State. So just anything that's been offered, I've always said, yeah, I'll do it.
That's great. And it seems like a lot of what you've done led back to the safety of children.
Yes.
And that brings us to your current position. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that. How did that come to be, and why that particular niche?
So, I have children of my own. And growing up, there were experiences that, I think looking back, probably contributed as well, not just to what happened in my career, but there were a lot of things, I think, through my life that kind of, this is where I'm supposed to be. But I guess, my biggest thing with the work that I do today is all about helping children, and I had some really good mentors, and I took in everything that I could from them. I just knew that kids are our most vulnerable population, and I think that that's an area where we can make the biggest impact. And we can change directions for people. So that's the best time, I think, to be a positive influence is when somebody's young. I don't know. I got into investigations in 2012. And at that point in my career, one of my mentors also did the work that I do now for a number of years. He was the lieutenant in the division that I worked in. So he would still take cases, but not as often. But I always, when one of those cases came in, I always, would talk to him about it. I wanted to do work with those, and so that really kind of is how I started with, what I'm doing now. Was kind of piece by piece, and I noticed during the course of that time, because I was doing general investigations, I could be working on a burglary case, and then I could be working on a child abuse case, or any other high-level thing you can think of, and then trying to shift gears to those child cases is really tough. And I think that we can do a lot of different things and be all right, but I think to really get good at something, it takes a lot of focus in that area, and I just didn't have that doing general investigations. So when my lieutenant at that time ended up getting promoted, he left the division, and now he's the undersheriff of the agency I work for. And so when the current sheriff and he became the administration, they had asked for goal submissions for the upcoming year. And I had requested that we explore implementing more of a focused unit to work on family services issues and child abuse. Because I felt like we could be doing, I feel like we can always do better, but I felt like, I feel like we're missing something here. And so that was like December, January that year. January 1, the new sheriff and undersheriff took office. And within a few months, they let me know that they were creating the family services unit. And they wanted to know if I would still be interested in working in that unit. At the time, my partner, she had just got promoted, and we've kind of like mirrored paths throughout our careers, and so they created the unit, put her and I in it, and so that's how we are where we are today. But
that's awesome.
I noticed that our success rate has greatly improved, and we spare no expense on any cases, but we definitely realized that there was a lot more need for focus and training with those types of cases. And so they've really done a good job at getting us that training and experience that we need to be as effective as we can.
That's incredible. And what a cause, such an important cause. How long has it been since you started that new unit?
So the unit started in 2016. Yeah, 2000.
This is your third full year. This will be your third full year.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Going into our third full year with the unit, and so we do anything family services related. So we work a lot with domestic violence cases. We work a lot with child victims, but we also work with child offenders too. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that go with it. We do a lot of community outreach and education. So, yeah, it's been a good thing. It's been a fantastic opportunity, I think, for the children in my community, my county.
And so day to day, what are you doing? I mean, are you out, is it a combination of being out in the field, doing your investigative work, bringing things back? I mean, what's a typical day or week look like for Chris Felice?
You know, there's really no typical week, I guess. You know, things change so quickly, and since we've started with this unit, I think we're and done all this community outreach, we have gotten a lot of notice from the public. They recognize us, and we've opened those communication lines. So people, I think, are starting to get where they're more willing to report those types of things. And I also think by us reviewing and constantly reviewing things going on, we're catching a lot more of those cases that may have slipped through the cracks before.
Because there wasn't the focus.
Right, right. So a normal, I guess there's no normal. An average day, okay, consists of, you know, me getting into my office, and usually I'm working on cases that came in prior to that day, but there's always something that's popping up, you know, so.
And are you juggling 2 or 3 or 5 or 10? I mean, what are we talking?
You know, have you ever tried to juggle an elephant? No.
I could only imagine.
It's, there's so much going on. And I hate to close out a case until we've either been able to close it with an arrest, I guess, if that's what needs to happen, or until there's no moving forward, you know, and we're done, and there's nothing more that I can do with it. So I tend to keep my cases open a little bit longer than probably most people in my field.
You just want to see it done.
I want to see these things through. And so I have a pretty heavy caseload. And a typical week, we may have 1 case come in, or we may have 6. It just it goes by the day, you know. And so I have those days where I'm at the office, and I'll get in at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not getting home until midnight. And I don't think that that's so much the unit that I work in. I think that it's the division as a whole that we all have those days. But a lot of these cases are cases that you need to get after rather quickly. And so we work long days if we need to.
And are you able to give us any examples of not specifics, obviously, but a type of case? You know, and the reason I like to talk about these things is most of society goes through life, and if they're not tuned into that in some way, shape, or form, they have no idea what happens. And you and I have talked in the past, and I know some of the things, and I think it's important if you can just share a few things that.
You know, the work that I do isn't, I guess, glamorous to the public. I think that a lot of times, members of people don't want to hear about the stuff that I deal with. But I will share it because I think it's important. I know it's important. It's so important because, like I said, for a long time, I feel like the ball has gotten, not that it's gotten dropped, but things slip through the cracks. I mean, it's just kind of the way it is. So I think it's important because I think awareness really is important. And, so the majority of the cases that I work on involve child sexual abuse. Again, it's not glamorous. When people think of the police, they think that crazy car chase or that drug search warrant where, a team is running through a door, or they've had a negative experience, or they think that it's what you see on TV.
Right.
And so there's been a lot of times where I've had to explain to people that, this isn't your Law and Order TV show. And, investigations take time. And so some of my cases can really be extensive because usually when you're dealing with a child abuse case or a child's, whether it's a physical abuse case or a sexual abuse case, we don't get those reports immediately. So a lot of times we're digging back through time.
So it's been going on for quite a bit.
Yep. And so, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of work that needs to be done because it's not that immediate case where we have all this physical evidence that's going to allow us to easily convict this person of committing this burglary. It's a totally different world. So I work very closely with a lot of outside agencies because you learn that you can't do it all yourself. And you also learn that there's a lot of service organizations and agencies out there that their values and the work that they're doing kind of aligns with the work that I'm doing. So, when I first started in investigations, I did all of my own interviews of children. And I still do periodically here and there if I absolutely have to. I'm a forensic interview of children. I was able to go and get certified in that. Just another way to make that piece more uniform and better for the kids. But I work very closely with the Child Advocacy Center of the Finger Lakes because that's another organization that's completely aligned with wanting the same things that that I'm trying to accomplish. And I work a lot with Child Protective Services. Again, they're very much in line with what I do. I work closely with victim services. We have a victim service advocate that works for our county. And we also have another outside organization that provides victim advocacy. So a lot of moving parts to even just one case, I think, when it involves child abuse. But that's my typical day, is connecting with all these people and still making sure that we're all focused on the same thing. And, from the time that we receive a case to the very end, it's all about what's best for the child.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely child-focused process. Now, it's not a friendly. We all know that when a child has been abused, that's not a friendly experience for them to have to go through. Working with us, I'd like to say think about telling your deepest and darkest secrets to a perfect stranger.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's so interesting that our last guest was a therapist. And he was also the CEO of a large agency mm-hmm. that did just this. So to hear your side and his side in how it all works together, there's so many, now I see there's so many people involved to help this child.
Yeah.
And as he said, it's not always easy to turn someone in. Mm-hmm. Or it's not always easy for that child to speak up.
Right.
But when it happens, you have to act swiftly, because number one, you don't know if others are involved. So there's mm-hmm. so I'm just seeing kind of the whole picture here.
Yeah. So along with everything being completely victim-centered, the therapy services is a huge part of that. And so, our advocates are a huge piece of each and every one of these cases, because they're the connection to services.
Yeah. And healing, right?
And healing,
yeah.
And support.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've had a lot of cases where, you want to be that person to be able to provide that support all the way through. And it takes a lot of people, I do follow my cases through the court system and through disposition, and I still check in with people and that I've worked with, as far as kids as they've grown up, and but it's a tough road for any of them. So support and therapy are just, I preach services. That's one thing that I think is so much better about the way that we do things now, is that, not that we never offered services to anybody before,
right.
But when I have a case that comes in, if it's something that I need to have a forensic interview done on, which is a lot of them, a greater majority of those cases, I make the contacts that I need to get that interview piece set up, and then communication starts there with all these other service organizations. So the Child Advocacy Center, we'll get to that appointment, and these kids are wrapped in services from the start. And not only kids, we take care of these cases with all ages.
Yeah, I was going to say young adults.
Young adults. My partner and I, we do all of the pretty much all of the sex crime stuff that comes into the county too. So it's not just kids.
Even with adults. Okay.
Yeah, so we work even with adults.
Because I'm sure it's a lot of the same support, right, and processes that.
Yep. So we may not utilize the Child Advocacy Center for an adult. That's for children.
Specific, right.
I mean, there are extenuating. There's always circumstances. So every now and then we will need them to do an interview for us. But the best thing for the kids in that and in dealing with that experience is that they don't have to tell their story to 100 different people. We have one person talk to the child, and everybody that needs information from that, for their part, we observe the interviews, and it eliminates the need for multiple times of re-traumatizing these victims.
Right. Chris, you talk about shame or shameless a lot.
Yeah, so...
Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I absolutely will. So, Shame or Shameless is the title of the book that I'm working on. But really, I don't want to talk so much about the title of the book. Shame or Shameless is I guess I titled it that way because this is a book that I'm writing to survivors of incidents like this. Because through experience, through life experiences, and we can imagine how, I'll just tell you a little bit about the first chapter in this book, okay? So imagine you have a 15-year-old boy, we'll say. And the 15-year-old boy comes from a solid foundation. Growing up as a solid foundation in his family and his beliefs and his values. At 15, you're pretty vulnerable. The 15-year-old boy gets himself in a situation to where he is victimized. He experiences firsthand he's sexually abused or assaulted. Okay. The immediate feelings after something like that happens, it's an internal thing. And so we're talking about a 15-year-old boy coming from a strong base, right? He's going to experience shame. He's going to put a lot of the blame on himself. Emotions are going to be out of control. Especially, I think, when you have a male victim, the thing that I find is that it spins them into this world where they don't know their identity anymore, especially with a male abuser. So the emotions of, am I gay? That's one thing that they go through. The fear of what the rest of the world is going to think. All of those things that bring shame are front and center. Okay, so now we're going to go in contrast here. So now you have a 15-year-old boy that comes from no foundation, doesn't have the support systems in place that every child needs. Didn't have any value, didn't have any solid values instilled in him while growing up. Definitely more vulnerable, right? At risk, probably. And then we'll put them in the same situation. They're offended against. They're going to go through all those same feelings of shame. And they have no foundation. So it's the same for both. Without services, therapy services, it gets buried, right? It's not something you talk about. It's not something that you let the world know about, and not that you should let the world. I guess maybe it's not something you're going to shout from the rooftops that I was sexually abused by so-and-so. But I guess my point is that over time, without any help, a lot of people don't get to that shameless point. And if they make it, drugs and alcohol turn into a big part of life when you're trying to bury your feelings. There's just so many different things that come into play, but that's really what Shame or Shameless is about, and that you can move forward and you can be a successful person. And whether you have people supporting you or people saying, this is a problem child, this is a kid he's a pain in the neck, doesn't really matter if you get through the process. So nothing's permanent. You're not broken. You're not damaged. But there is a light at the other side, at the end of the tunnel. And, maybe 20 years before you find it. Maybe 30 years. Who knows? But ultimately, we have the ability to move forward. Humans, we can make it through anything, but you got to stick it out.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear that you're moving forward on the book, because I know when we talked the first time it was something you had thought about, but now it sounds like it's reality, which is it's wonderful.
It's coming to life.
Great,
so,
great.
And it may not be for everybody, the book, but I guess my hope is that it resonates with the people that need it.
What about staying the course through struggle? What does that mean to you?
Kind of ties into what we were just talking about, and things aren't easy. Things don't come easy. I think that we live in a world now where it's easy to look at people all over the world living in glamour, right? And
it's not reality.
It's not reality. So you need to stand firm in your struggles, because I think that a lot of times we give up. People give up before before their time has come, you know.
So going back to what you were saying earlier, maybe 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I guess what you feed your mind will allow you to perceive things in different ways. And I'm a big fan of reading about the subconscious mind and learning, you know, how that affects us as people, and that there's more than just the conscious part of the brain. But when you are struggling, fight or flight tends to take over. And it could be something minor. It could be something that's the biggest struggle of your life. And how you choose to see definitely will shift you in one direction or the other. You know, I think that we have a society that has a lot of things that we're struggling with. And I think we have a lot of people within our society that are more apt to throw in the towel, I guess, because that struggle's tough. And you got to stay the course. You know, that's all of these things that happen to us. I believe that at some point we'll know the meanings. And, you know, whether you're a spiritual person or a very religious person practicing in any religion, or you are not spiritual at all, I don't think that any of that we can all ask for answers, but I think that we don't have the right to know right now maybe what those answers are. And we've all at one point or another said, why me? And there's no explanation, right?
Right.
But you need to pay attention to those moments, because down the road, it'll be clear. It'll be clear to you.
Right.
So,
Chris, you've talked about taking off the jacket. What is that?
taking off the jacket is so important to me. That
you're not wearing a jacket.
Saying that is so important to me. Well, really, whether we're truly wearing a jacket or not, we are all, at one time or another, covering ourselves from who we truly are. And so, we've talked some about my job, my career, but we've also talked a lot about the whys, the why I do this, and how I feel about, doing certain things, and what the reason or the purpose is. And taking off the jacket, to me, it's funny because I ran into a couple people that I hadn't seen since high school. It's been 20 years since I've seen these people. And, it was fun, but it was nice to see them, and it was nice to talk, but all within about 5 minutes, I could tell you if they were married, if they had children, and what they did for their career.
Based on your
No, just typically, I think the way conversation goes is that we spend so much time in our career choices that becomes who we are. So taking off the jacket to me really means, who are you outside of that path?
Who are you as a person?
Who are you as a person? Who are you deep within your soul? I think that's an important thing to think about, because people don't think about it. And so this conversation I had with these guys, I walked away from it and I was thinking to myself, wow, 20 years has gone by and that's all, right? Not that they were boring people, but
are you evolving?
Are you right?
Yeah.
And so taking off the jacket, and I've said it 6 times probably since I've been sitting here, get rid of that thing and start living with, with your truths.
Yeah.
With what's within you. And
it's really interesting because you call it taking off the jacket. And before you started in Live Tribe, one of the big buzzwords that we used from day one was taking off the mask, getting to the essence of yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So it has the same premise that we carry these masks, we carry these jackets with us our entire life. But at some point, you may be mature enough and ready to come into your own.
Right.
And it may take some people longer than others, but I love your analogy, and that's why we're doing this. That's why it's in our name, American Real.
Yeah.
Real stories, real conversations, real people. So.
Yeah. So, it kind of goes hand in hand with when I say speak your truth. That's really what I mean. And that's why I think that this platform is so amazing, because it gives an opportunity to have an insight and an inside view of what or who somebody really is. And, I've been a police officer for 15 years. That's not who I am. It's a vehicle to where I can create an impact. And it hasn't always been fun. It hasn't always been easy. It's not easy to this day. But at the end of the day, I know that I'm not going to be a police officer forever. And I don't want to be wrapped up so tight in that part of life that I don't know what else to do. And I think the only way to figure out is to dig deep. And you got to kind of shift gears once in a while, and I think we all do it in different ways. But
And Chris, this ties into, again, these are all your talking points. Really paying attention to the inflection points in your life, right?
Mm-hmm. So I think that it's one of the most important things you can do when you're trying to figure out. Everybody is always everybody's always searching for the secret, right? The purpose. What is the meaning of this? And inflection points are those little things, or maybe big things, that have happened throughout your life that have kind of gotten you to where you're at. But also, and so we can look at them in hindsight, but also I think it's important to be present in the moment too, with life in general. And I can tell you, looking back over my time, there's been a lot of different things. When I say, I say to myself, or I think, man, what got you to be so passionate about working in these cases that are just awful, they're horrific. You're working and dealing with people in some of the most worst times of their lives. How did you choose that? And I've never, I guess for a long time I struggled with figuring out, I know something's calling me this direction, but I don't know what it is, right? This opportunity's, in front of me, and I'm taking it. There's got to be a reason. And so I can look back over different times throughout my life at different situations and different things that I've, lived as a person outside of the field in which I work, different experiences that I've had with, friends and family, and I know exactly why I'm where I am at right now, based on those inflection points.
Yeah, and I could see how maybe the easy way out would be maybe to shift careers and not have to do this, but standing firm in your purpose, as you mentioned, is really front and center for you.
It is. And I think it has to be, because I think that anybody in their right mind would throw it out the window and pick something else to do.
Yeah.
It's not easy work. It's not easy on a lot of things. I mean, there is an effect on somebody that does this kind of work, and it affects not only me, it affects my family. My children, I have 3 children of my own. My girlfriend Alexa has 2 children. And I can tell you that through a lot of my time, I wanted to shelter my kids from everything. You want to be the shield. And we're going to take, and I think that that's pretty normal.
Yeah.
But I think that I was, and probably still am, a little more heightened to those worries, I guess, or concerns for their safety. And my kids probably would tell, it wasn't until just recently that I've been comfortable with them going and spending the night at a friend's house, or going out with friends away from supervision, and so it affects them that way. But it also affects them in that I'm not home. There's a lot of times where I'm not home. I could tell you, I had a very serious case come in on my son's birthday last year, and I'm going to tie in the inflection points with this, because it was my son's birthday, and for some reason, at the time I didn't know why I did this, but before I brought him to school, I gave him his birthday card, and I mean, I was supposed to be home from work at 5 o'clock, right? But I give him his birthday card, tell him how much I love him, hug him, kiss him, because that's, that's the way it goes. That's the way it is. But it was different in the fact that I gave him his birthday card before I brought him to school that day. And so I bring him to school and go to work, and I have a pretty serious case come in that ended up, I worked straight through his birthday to the next morning on. And so I completely missed his birthday, other than that 1 hour window I had in the morning before school with him. And I didn't really know why I gave him the birthday card, but the inflection point in me was that somebody else needed me for something very important that I didn't see at the time. But and it's frustrating. I would much rather be home with my son on his birthday. But my purpose is what keeps that in check, and I think that my kids they'll be all right, and they'll understand. So it was his birthday and I missed, and then my daughter's next birthday, I missed it was the same type of scenario. And so, it affects my kids. With time, it affects them with the way that, they experience things and we live. And it also affects, my girlfriend Alexa. She's an amazing person. And she, in her career, her values and purpose are in line with mine, which is a great thing because we have an ability to support each other through some of those tough moments.
Sounds like it complement each other.
So I mean, she's worked in children's services herself and victim services. So she gets it. She understands it from a firsthand experience, which makes things nice. But I still think, going back to the whole purpose thing, if I wasn't firm in that, it would be really easy for me to not do it.
Yeah.
And I work with several other investigators in my division that aren't within my unit that have said, I don't know how you do this, you can have it. Mm. And my answer to that is I do this because it's important, it serves a purpose, and it's the most impact we can make is within our children. So, yeah, it's all centered around that, my purpose in life.
Phenomenal. Chris, you talked about your book, which is great. What else is next for you? Where do you see yourself going these next 5 to 10 years?
I like speaking. I like teaching people things. I can say that my career in law enforcement, I think, is I'm decided that I'm going to retire when I can. So I have to do 20 years, so I have 5 years to go. And I'm going to do 5 years in the unit that I'm working. I'm going to stay the course. I'm going to trudge through it, and I'm going to help as many people as I can. But I'm going to retire when I hit that point. And so, looking ahead and where I see myself then, I see that I know that I'm still going to be adding value to our young people in some way. But I also, I like to speak to groups. And so I'm going to do some speaking engagements. I do a couple times a year, teach classes to a couple different places outside of my work, and outside of my work life. And so that's been good. And I think that that's probably what will continue. So, you know, I'll still have to work.
Right.
You know, but that's really the direction that I'm headed. And I want to be a positive influence and inspire as many people to keep on moving as I can.
It sounds like you're on a great path for that. You have a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge to be able to help others. And I'm excited for you for your career and the career beyond retirement to see what you're able to bring to this world.
Yeah, I thank you for that. I feel like things are really just beginning, you know. I think we all feel like that probably at multiple stages in life, but I definitely feel like, you know, we're at the beginning. I don't think there's a long-term thing, you know, that I mean, I hope to live to be 100+ years old, you know. And I want to spend all of that time making a difference somewhere. So I know that that's the direction I'm headed, is to continue just in a little different capacity.
Sure.
I want to get out of doing the investigative part. I think that there's a time where it's probably time to go, you know. I'm hopeful that sometime within the next 5 years I can, because my partner can retire about the same time she can actually retire just before me. And so hopefully we'll be able to find somebody that has the passion that we do to work on these cases before then, so that we can get them trained and in the right place.
Yeah, you'll make it happen.
Because I want to retire, but I also I don't want to let the kids not have the services that we provide
Right.
either. So
You want to leave it in good hands.
yeah, it's important
Awesome.
to me. So
Chris, if you could take out your cell phone right now and call the 20-year-old Chris Felice, what would you say to him?
I would say what I would say to the 20-year-old Chris would be, pay attention to your closest circle of people, the people you spend the most time with. I would say that those people will have such an influence on you that you will become just like them. And why I think that is important is because a lot of times we don't choose the right people. And I don't think, I'm not saying that I hung out with bad people, but I think that would be a good lesson moving forward from that point in life, because life is just beginning at that point. Really, and you're in your early adult stages of life where things kind of are just crazy, and you don't know what's happening, and so that's important. And I would say also be careful what you tell yourself. Because you're listening. And what you tell yourself becomes so deep within your subconscious thought that it will have a long-term effect on where you end up. I remember being 20 years old and having to stand before several people that would go on to tell me that I would never be successful. And I think that story is for a different time, but I have to say I listened. Thank God I didn't listen for long. Because I wouldn't be where I am today, which is, I think, in a good place.
Well, it's powerful, and as you're saying that, I think about a lot of things, but the stories that we tell ourselves, the things we tell ourselves on a regular basis. We become what we think about. Earl Nightingale said that.
Yes.
I just interviewed a gentleman, David Nagel, down in the Charlotte area. He has a podcast called the Successful Mind Podcast. And the whole premise is, and he's living proof because he did it himself, is everything you just said, where be careful what you tell yourself. Because our subconscious mind does not know the difference between what's reality and what's made up.
Yeah.
So plant those thoughts of success, plant those thoughts of self-love and everything else in between, so that you give yourself the best opportunity for success.
Right.
And forget those naysayers. Yes, people will. And it's hard, especially when you're young and influential.
I would have to say that when I was 20 years old, if somebody looked at me and said, Chris, you are going to be 15 years into a career where you are impacting so many people in a positive way. You're going to be a police officer, you're going to be a criminal investigator working in helping children and families. I would have laughed probably in your face if you told me that when I was 20. Because that's not something that I, at that time in life, had even thought about. And I wouldn't have believed it. So yeah.
And isn't it true that all these stepping stones in our life, even though, and you alluded to it earlier, at the time you may not know why or the reason, but they all lend itself to the purpose of what we're really here to do.
Yes.
And your purpose now, although it's very, very important, this may be lending itself to an even greater purpose down the road. And that's what's exciting, I think, about life in general, that we can't obviously predict our future, but we could certainly put ourselves in the best position. And it sounds like you're on a really good path toward that, and you have an aiming point.
Yeah, so to that end, kind of like, what would you tell yourself, what would you tell the 20-year-old you? I would like to put this idea out. And what would you tell the person ahead?
The 60-year-old you.
The 60-year-old you.
Yeah.
Because I think that it is important to think forward. I think it's important to live in the moment and be present in the here and now. But I think that it is important also to look forward. And so what would you tell the 60-year-old you? Because put yourself in that 60-year-old's shoes looking back saying, I wish, I shoulda, I woulda, I coulda. Conquer all that stuff That's the process. That's what we're doing, going through life. And I think you can either recognize it, or you can exist. And I think that we're growing and learning, or we're just getting by.
Well, I love that, and if you don't mind, I might actually use that with some of our guests, asking them that question, because it's a great question.
Yeah, that's something that I think is really important. We all have things that we say we could have done this differently, but why don't we think about those now, so that we can have a trajectory to be laser focused at for later. And I think that if we can think about those, it goes back to what you're telling yourself. So can you predict your future? No. I don't think that you can absolutely, with 100% certainty, predict your future. But you have an impact on your future. So looking ahead, and you have to have something that you're shooting for.
Yeah. Well, look, this has been great. I so appreciate you making the trip here to our studios. It's great to sit down with you for all this time and get to know you even better. I look forward to you continuing in our live tribe. I hope some of the people watching join you in the live tribe so they could get to know you a little bit better.
I think that it would be so awesome for as many people to do live tribe as as many people that have the opportunity. And I think that that's the great thing. It's an opportunity for everybody.
Yeah.
The first 21 days, it doesn't cost you anything. It costs you pennies a day after that. It's really what you want to make of it. But I think that it would be so cool for millions of people to do that, because it's a pretty amazing thing that you experience.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate your contribution to it, and hopefully, in time, us and many others will benefit from it. But before I let you go, one last question that I ask everyone, and you talked about it just a little bit earlier, or touched on it, and I was hoping you weren't going to go there because I wanted to save it to the end, but what do you want your legacy to be ultimately?
Ultimately, I want to leave a footprint on this world that helps people stretch through the tough times and through the good times. I want people to see that, know me as a giver, and somebody that thinks we can always do more. And I want people to really go with that idea. So whatever it is that you're doing, there's always more. I think that that's really my big thing. I want people to know how important it is to give to others, share who you are with the world. I think we all have gifts to give. We have a lot of free gifts to give. That's what's important.
Great. Chris Felice, thanks so much. Appreciate your time, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Roger. This has been amazing.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you for tuning into American Real. Be sure to visit our website, americanreal.tv, or search for us on iTunes or YouTube for past episodes. While you're there, please rate us or leave us a review. You can also connect with me directly on Instagram or Facebook, or by emailing roger@americanreal.tv. Now, if you're interested in starting your own podcast, join me in Podcast Your Passion. I'll take you through my 8-week course where I'll mentor you to build a world-class podcast. I'm only taking on a small group of people who want to share their passion through broadcasting, where I'll have you up on iTunes and YouTube within weeks so you can podcast your passion. Click on the link below for more information.